Hello guys, I will be sharing to you about the characteristics of a good test. This is Ma'am Liz, your resource person. Stay tuned. First is reliability. A person is said to be reliable kung hindi siya nagbabago sa bawat panahon. Siya ay masasabing maaasahan mo at anytime and anywhere. Ganun din yung test, guys. So, reliability is the consistency of scores obtained by an individual on different times on the same test or parallel test scored by the same or different examiner at the same or different times. So the difference in scores, if any, should be insignificant. So since reliability refers to the consistency of measurement, we can say that a test which is reliable is said to be stable. It shows how stable test scores or assessment results are from one measurement to another. Hence, the reliability of a test signifies the extent to which it yields consistent results upon testing and retesting. If a test measures consistently, it is therefore reliable. Now, I have here a list of characteristics of reliability. The first one is that it refers to the degree to which a measuring tool, say a test, yields consistent results upon testing and retesting. Second is that it indicates the level to which a test is internally consistent. And third, it refers to the preciseness of a measuring instrument. Notice that I have highlighted the important terms that you have to remember as far as reliability is concerned. The first one is consistency of results upon testing and retesting. The second one is internally consistent, which I will be sharing more of this upon a discussion about the methods of reliability. And the third one is preciseness. However, a test can be reliable but not valid. But to be valid, reliability is a requirement. Now, I have here factors affecting reliability. First is length of test. There is a positive correlation between the number of items in a test and the reliability of a test. The more the number of items the test contains, the greater is its reliability. Second is construction of the test, the nature of items, their difficulty level, the objectivity of scoring, item interdependence, and alternative responses are factors that affect reliability. So more alternative responses will increase the reliability of the test. Why? Because it will lessen the chance of guessing the correct answer. Next is nature of the group. The reliability of a test will be more if the test is administered to a heterogeneous group, meaning it is a class composed of high-performing, average-performing, and low-performing students. So the more the variability, the higher the reliability coefficient. So the testing condition is another factor. So the physical conditions of the test and the environmental factors around the test takers affect the reliability of a test. Another one is guessing and chance errors. Guessing paves the way to increase error variances and it reduces reliability. So teachers, we must find ways on how to encourage our students to study better instead of guessing the correct answer during a test. Too easy or too difficult items. Guys, we have to make sure that our test is challenging enough for those who were able to study but difficult to those who did not. Because having too easy or too difficult items will lead us to find it difficult to distinguish between good and bad students. Now, there are also other factors that we have to consider, like, for example, clerical errors. Clerical errors may bring confusion to the students. Another one is the interval between testing. Having a close gap or too short gap between testing and retesting may bring too much familiarity among the test items. Another thing is the effect of practice. This happens when the teacher has a different testing administration practices from one section to another. Now I have here the types or methods of reliability testing. The first one is test-retest method. It's a measure of stability and precision. So from the word itself, test-retest, you use the same test twice to the same group with any time interval between tests from several minutes to several years. Next is equivalent forms method. This is a measure of equivalence. In this way, you apply two equal forms of the test to the same group in close time gap. Split half method is a measure of internal consistency. where you apply the test once, score two equivalent halves of the test, like the group of odd items versus the group of even items, correct correlation between halves to fit full test by the use of Spearman-Brown formula to measure reliability of the test. The fourth one is Kuder-Richardson method. It is a measure of internal consistency. You give the test once, score total, and apply Kuder-Richardson formula to know the degree of reliability. And the last one is inter-rater method. It's a measure of consistency, where you use a set of student response requiring judgmental scoring to two or more raters and have them independently score the responses. Another characteristic of a good test is validity. A test is said to be valid if it measures what it is supposed to measure. In doing so, the test must be aligned to the learning objectives to serve its purpose. The following are the characteristics of validity. It refers to the truthfulness of the test result. If the test is valid, it is reliable. But if the test is reliable, it may or may not be valid. It is an evaluative judgment on a test. It measures the degree to which a test measures what it intends to measure. It refers to the appropriateness of the interpretation of result and not to the procedure itself. And no assessment is valid for all purposes. A test is valid for a particular purpose only. Why? Because the validity of a test depends on the learning objectives set by the teacher. I have here a list of factors affecting validity. First is lack of clarity in directions. Guys, if there is lack of clarity in directions, it may lead to misunderstanding and confusion among the students. The next one is ambiguity. Just the same, ambiguous statements lead to confusion and misinterpretation. The third one is length of the test. So lengthening of a test not only increases its reliability, but it also increases its validity. So if a test is too short to provide a representative sample of the performance, its validity will also suffer. Nature of the group. A test may be valid for one group but may not be valid for another. It may be valid for one culture but not to another culture. Inadequate or lack of time. In the case of an achievement test, if sufficient time will not be given to the students, it reduces the validity of the interpretation of results. Another factor, poorly constructed test items due to subjective, vague, and unclear test items. Another factor is improper arrangement of items. So the items in a test should be arranged according to the difficulty order from easy to difficult. Another factor is identifiable pattern of answers because this will lead students to guess the right answers. Administration and scoring factors may also affect validity. Factors like insufficient time, unfair aid to individual students who ask for help, cheating, and unreliable scoring by students tend to lower validity. Cultural influences, socioeconomic status, social class structure, and others may also affect the test scores as well as the validity of test. The last one is a criterion that is correlated to the test. The criterion for which the validity is assessed should be a reliable one and free from bias, or else it will affect the validity. All right, now let's have the different types of validity. One is face validity. So when a test appears to measure what it intends to measure, it is said to possess face validity. So face validity does not require any statistical technique to be used, and it is based on subjective judgment. Whenever a test is prepared, it is submitted to experts to assess if it measures what it intends to measure. So in content validity, the test is estimated by assessing the presence of the content to be assessed in the test paper. So this means that as a teacher, we have to make sure that all the topics are covered in the test and that all the items must measure the different behavioral objectives. Content validity is also considered as curricular validity or rational validity or logical validity. The next one is concurrent validity. In concurrent validity, we do validating a new test against previous tests. So in which the previous tests are already established and are known criteria for the new test. Example is validating a newly developed psychological test by comparing its scores against the scores from another psychological test which is well established. Another type of validity is construct validity. The construct validity of a test is the extent to which the test may be said to measure a theoretical construct or trait. So a construct is an individual characteristic that we assume exists to explain some aspects of human behavior. Like for example, it could be a scholastic aptitude or mechanical comprehension, anxiety, among others. We have here predictive validity. So the predictive validity of a test refers to the predictive capacity of a test. So it refers to the effectiveness of a test in predicting future outcomes. Like for example, PUPSET scores are correlated to LET scores, meaning to say, PUPSET scores are used to predict LET scores of an individual. If the coefficient of correlation is high, we say that PUPSET has a predictive validity. Next is criterion validity. Criterion validity evidence tells us just how well a test corresponds with particular criteria. It includes both predictive validity and concurrent validity. A test may be validated against many criteria as there are specific uses for it. So aside from reliability and validity, objectivity is another characteristic of a good test. A test should be objective in nature. The test should gain almost the same score to an individual, irrespective of the examiner who scores it. So in the case of an objective type of test, it's easy to maintain objectivity because normally one correct answer corresponds to 1 point. However, if your test is, say, for example, an essay 1, you need to have a set of criteria or rubrics to avoid bias. Practicability is another trait of a good test. So the usefulness of a test in terms of time, energy, and resources should be considered. You have to make sure that your test can easily be administered. So guys, remember the 4 traits or characteristics of a good test are VOP: reliability, validity, objectivity, and practicability. Thank you for listening, guys.